Alrighty, friends, let's get started. Welcome to the Stage Managers Association public chat on managing events at the Super Bowl with my friend Jay Sheehan.
Hello.
Uh, I am Erin Joy Swank. I am the chair of webinars for the Stage Managers Association. I use she, her pronouns. If you are uh, watching or listening in on phone or another version that you cannot see me right now, I have longer and longer hair as the pandemic goes on. It's a little below my shoulder length, brown hair. I'm wearing a rainbow colored sweater in front of a couple show posters behind me and my Muppet friends. I come to you from the Forgotten Mountain Time Zone on the land of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Oceti-Sakowin, and Ute, otherwise known as Aurora, Colorado. With us in the back end, helping us manage things, is Adrienne Wells. Give us a little shout out, Adrienne.
Hello, folks. My name is Adrienne Wells. I'm on the ancestral lands of the Osage near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am a white woman with mid-length dark brown hair that's in a braid and a blue flannel. I have some bookshelves and a show record behind me on the wall. I will mostly be in the background managing the digital side of this event, so you will mostly be just seeing the SMA logo and not my video.
And Jay, we're going to get to you in just a second. So we can go straight into the rest of you. Let me do a little bit more of our acknowledgments and then we'll get back to who you are. So let me move all of my lovely videos so I can see all of these words properly. Since our activities are shared digitally to the internet, let's also take a moment to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many Indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art we make leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect Indigenous peoples worldwide. I invite you to join me in acknowledging all this as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship. These words are from Adrienne Wong of Spiderweb Show. You can visit nativeland.ca to learn more about the land that you're on, and Adrienne will make sure to add that in the chat for us. We also recognize that the United States as we know it today was built at the often fatal expense of forcefully enslaved Black people. We acknowledge and remember those who did not survive the Middle Passage, those who were beaten and lynched at the hands of white Americans, and those who died and are still dying while fighting for their freedom. We remember those who toiled the grounds where many theaters have been built and resurrected. We acknowledge that while fighting for their own lives and civil liberties, Black people have envisioned a world that will be better for all of humanity. We thank Chris Maxwell, the Black Theater Caucus, and the authors of We See You White American Theater Demands for providing that language for us. And I'm going to stop sharing. And Jay, tell us about yourself, where you're coming in from, and your path here. And again, we invite anybody to join on and join us in gallery view if you want.
Yeah, please. And also, if you have questions along the way or comments, this is a discussion. It's hardly a lecture. Let's see, where do I start? My name's Jay. I'm on the land of the Kumeyaay. I'm wearing dark clothes like I often do. I'm a white male and I have gray hair that's getting grayer and longer as the pandemic, as Erin was just alluding to. My journey started in seventh grade. I mean, I won't go back that far to be along, but I was always involved in drama. I always wanted to be backstage. I tried the acting thing once. It scared the heck out of me. So I always wanted to be backstage. So community college rolls along. They ask who wants to be a stage manager. I asked, what does that person do? And they say, well, you're basically in charge of everything. There was no class that was offered. And I said, let me do it. I'll take it. Nobody else raised their hand out of 60 people. They all wanted to be lighting designers and, set scenic designers. So I took it. I thought, well, maybe this is kind of job security if this is how it is out in the real world too. So did that all through community college, transferred to San Diego State because one of my teachers at the community college in Los Angeles is where I grew up, was telling us about this great theater program at San Diego State. So I transferred down there and went through and stage managed everything I could. I started right away and to the detriment of my other classes that I didn't do as as well in. I was getting A's in theater, but because I was spending so much time in the theater and stage managing, my other grades kind of weren't great. But so I was one of those challenge students, test anxiety, couldn't memorize things. It was challenging. So anyway, I had an opportunity. One of my goals that I had when I was younger was that I wanted to work on a Broadway show by the time I was 25. I didn't know in what capacity. I just knew I wanted to try New York by the time I was 25. Serendipitously, how life works sometimes. I had a friend that was working on a show that was going to New York. I was still in school. I decided to drop out that semester to take a leave of absence and go back and be a follow spot operator because I couldn't be the stage manager. I was not equity at the time. And so I went back there all, 100%. Yes, I'll be a follow spot operator. And I made $250 a week. So $1,000 a month, and my rent was 900. So I was going to work it out. I figured that I would get some other work. I would try to create opportunities for myself where I could be hireable if I wasn't in rehearsal or doing something else. So I talked to the people that were unloading the trucks, and they were like, you can come on down tomorrow. And before you knew it, I was unloading trucks and doing things like that. And I was working. I got overhired to go sand doors for some shows out in Brooklyn. Like I was just doing whatever I could to make it work. One call I got was to go unload a truck at the 72nd and the Promenade Theater at 72nd and Broadway at the time. And when I got down there, it was a transfer show from the Old Globe Theater. And the production stage manager at the Old Globe happened to talk to my stage management class when I was a student. And I kind of stalked him on the way back to his car and said, how do I work for you? And he gave me, someday, keep working, practice, practice, practice. And so when I saw him on the stage, he saw me and he remembered me and I remembered him, obviously. And he said, when you get back to San Diego, let's have an interview. So that's where I got my equity card, was at the Old Globe Theater. I pulled off a good interview the second time. The first time was a disaster. So he gave me a second chance. And to this day, I'll be indebted to Douglas, rest his soul. He died of AIDS in 1994 when I was just in my 5th year there. So from there, they were bringing in a show from New York. So because I was the latest hire, I've been there for 5 years. There were much longer term stage managers there than me. I got laid off for a season, as happens. We all know that happens. And at the time, there was a job where the stage manager for the San Diego Symphony became available. So I went and interviewed. I knew nothing about classical music. I knew nothing about how to work with 90 musicians. I knew nothing about the union, the AFM. And I was offered the job, because I think they had the Old Globe name behind it on the resume, that if you could stage manage there, you could stage manage, musicians as well. So that was a great job. I love that job. I learned how to be a production manager there because I started taking on the responsibility of renting the hall out. There was nobody was doing that. So I said, well, I'll do that. And I started fielding phone calls from the local concert promoters, and they would rent Symphony Hall. It's a 2,200 seat house. And we would do shows like Crosby, Stills and Nash and, really kind of mellow stuff because Symphony Hall was such a beautiful building. We didn't do like Nine Inch Nails or anything like that out there. No offense. So that's where I started to learn how to get into the music business a little bit, just kind of on accident, and really became a production manager there. Unfortunately, that organization went out of business. They claimed bankruptcy when I was 5 or 6 years into the job, and we all lost our jobs, everybody. So I went back to my relationships that I knew. I said, hey, I'm out of a job. And at that time, Forever Plaid, which was a new musical that I worked on it at the Old Globe, was going to do a run in San Diego, an open-ended run. And we didn't know how long it was going to run. So I said, yeah, I'll be the stage manager of that. And I did it for about 2 years every night. It was a great gig because I had a great assistant. So I didn't have to show up till like 7 for an 8 o'clock show. There was no intermission. It was an hour and 20 minutes and I was home by the 10 o'clock news. It was awesome. Greatest gig ever. And got paid a full week for doing that. So dream stage manager job. My phone rang, as it does, when we're freelancing, and sometimes you get these calls, you don't know who these people are, but I got a call from somebody at Universal Music Group, which is part of Universal Studios up in Los Angeles. And they said, we are building a 20,000 seat amphitheater just south of you in San Diego, in Chula Vista, it's going to be called the Coors Amphitheater. And we are looking for a director of operations, and you're on the short list. And we'd like you to come down and interview. And I
And
said,
you hadn't even known about the job, and you were already on the short list. Okay.
I was on the short list. And I said, how short is the list before I come down there? And how did I get on it was my question. And a well-respected at the time mentor had given them my name. So because of my relationship with promoters while I was at Symphony Hall, so there was that kind of connection there. Even though they do totally different things, So I went down there, and I expected not to really get the job because I knew nothing about what an operations manager really did. And one of the questions that I think landed me the job was that they asked me, what do I know about cleaning an amphitheater? What do I know about cleaning a 20,000 seat amphitheater? And I think they wanted me to tell them what tools to use and what kind of, how many bags it's going to take. I knew nothing about that. So all I could come up with was, I can tell the difference between clean and dirty. And if you give me people, I can get dirty clean again. I just fumbled it out of my mouth, and I got the job. So I ended up staying there for about 5 years. This was in the time of when NSYNC was just starting out. So I did the first NSYNC shows, Backstreet Boys, Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, Blink 182. I mean, some of the Metallica, Elton John, Aerosmith. There's just, the list goes on and on about the shows and the artists that I've had the joy to work with, many of whom I idolized as I was growing up and pretending to be them and playing the air guitar. So getting to meet them was a special joy. One day my phone rang again. It was my professor of stage management at San Diego State when I was going there. And he said, would you come and speak to my class about what it's like to stage manage Metallica versus stage managing Shakespeare? And I said, sure, I'll come down and talk to the class. So I went down and talked to the class. And then at that time, he said, hey, can you take a look at our department and tell us what you think is missing? There's some things that we're not connecting. We're not really doing the best we can. So I took a couple of weeks and poked around a little bit and decided that they needed a production manager. Is what the problem was, is that there were 6 individual shows happening, but there was no cohesive person or department that was kind of pulling them all together, that was guiding the stage managers. The stage managers were being taught by a scenic design professor at the time. Because it was just it was a rotating job, and that's how it was. So I told them what I thought that they needed, and they said thank you. And then a year later, they called me and offered me a job, and to be the production manager. It was like I was writing my own job description, and to teach stage management, and to have free reign to be able to still keep my freelance business. My event planning business. So I taught one class. I was the production manager, and that was 20 years ago. And I'm not a tenured faculty member. I'm a full-time faculty member on 3-year appointments. I get lucky every 3 years. I've created a certificate in entertainment management now, so we can have international students, and students from all over the country can actually study with me through the Open University program. It's a 4-class certificate. It's a little bit more expensive than being a matriculated student, but it's an option. So I created that. I created a production management class. I thought there was a need for that a few years ago. And I oversee the stage managers now, and that's kind of what I've been doing. I had a great event planning company that was mine. I'm an S Corp. I became an S Corp a few years ago, and I was doing probably 25 concerts a year. The VA House Band of Kumeyaay was one of my clients. I helped them build a concert venue out there on the reservation 3 years ago, and they're part of their talent buying team. And so I was doing great. I have nonprofits. I do about 10 nonprofit shows a year as a production manager or a producer. And I hire stage managers to do those. And then the COVID hit and leveled us all, and just as you know, just we all became on the same playing field. I don't care if you're Bon Jovi or Jay Sheehan, you're both out of work. You know, if you
Yeah.
art is what you want to do, we were out of work. So, learning how to pivot, that got scary. It was, as you know, Erin, being the one who was successful, I think in the pivot. Some were not, some have not been so successful. I was scared of it, I'll be honest with you, because as an event producer doing live events, the idea of doing virtual events just frightened me. I didn't quite know what to make of it, except that I didn't think I was qualified. I was too old. There are younger people that are doing it. Why do they need blah, 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 blah. And that went on for a few months until I finally just picked myself up and said, stop it. Pretend that you're making a movie, pretend that you're making a documentary, pretend that you're doing a live broadcast of a news show. And I had a little bit of experience in college, doing some live fun things in the studio, but essentially that's what we're doing here, right? I mean, this is like a live, you counted me down, 3, 2, 1, I look in the camera and off we go, So once I grasped that, I was able to then move into producing and then trying to convince my clients that they could do this virtually, as well. So that's about my gig, and
Yeah. And you've
I
also written a book.
yes, I did in my spare time. Me and Carrie Gillette and I wrote the production manager's toolkit, which came as another one of those magical moments in life when you don't think that, neither one of us are authors, neither one of us claim to be writers. We were just in the right place at the right time, and we're tired of teaching production management without a textbook. And we were at USITT, Erin, you remember, in Fort Worth, and it was Deb from Emerson.
Aquavella.
Deb Aquavella from Emerson, who said, "Would you guys stop complaining, because we complain every year, and just go write the thing yourself?" So we were like, "Yeah, let's go write the thing ourselves." Yes. And then we said, "How do we get a publishing deal?" And literally, I said, "Let's go down to the Routledge Press bookstore on the expo floor and ask the lady behind the counter, how do we get a publishing deal?" And that's what we did. And it happened to be the new acquisitions editor that was there that day, that gave us her card. And we left and didn't think anything of it. And about a month later, we got an email that said, write a sample chapter. And the rest is history. Now we're writing the second edition. Struggling with COVID, about where does that fit? Where does that fit in our second edition? Because by the time it comes out, we may be eradicated and back to being, but I think acknowledging that it happened, I think is something that we're both trying to figure out what to do with.
So talk to us about what your say your job titles for that you've done it over the Super Bowls and what they mean and how you got there.
Sure. So they use them in kind of more of a corporate world, I would say. We have stage managers, but they actually manage the stages in the entertainment venue, which is the GameDay Fan Plaza, which is one of the venues that I oversee during certain years. It just kind of depends on where we're at and what city we're in. I've been flexible and fortunate to be involved with GameDay Fan Plaza, some of the tailgate party, which is the VIP party for about 8,000 people, where we have headline talent. The entrances is something that, which is a huge production in itself, just getting those things built, with metal detectors and this, having a more security background. So sometimes they've used that, to my advantage because of my amphitheater background in security and medical and crowd control, 20,000 people coming at you all at once.
And your titles were technical director for
Production manager. Yeah. So this year was technical director of stadium entries, specifically. So that means as the technical director, I'm responsible for, because we're out in the middle of nowhere, right? Building these entrances outside of the perimeter of the stadium, right? So we create these, bigger spaces. So the entrance is not at the entrance of the stadium. It's a little bit further back. But what we do is there's no electricity anywhere. There's no electricity. So my responsibility as technical director is to coordinate with the generator company to make sure that I have enough generators and enough electricity placed at the proper locations on the drawing, right? So that we know that from this generator, we can power up this many, x-ray machines or metal detectors or lighting for the tent or ticket scan, whatever phone chargers, whatever is needed for electricity. So we have to strategically place those out. So that's one of my responsibilities. This year also, it was an interesting new gig. It was placing the electronic mobile signs. They had about 40 of these big mobile LED walls that are on trucks that are like 12 by 18, and they are messaging boards. Gate C is this way.
12 by 18 inches, feet.
Feet, 18 feet by 12 feet on a trailer. So, and then they go up, they go up and then they spin 360 degrees. So the message can be different on each side. So 40 of those needed to be strategically placed. And that's challenging because if you're going to be on a sidewalk, you need permission from the city. Like there's all sorts of rules and regulations about not putting them on grass, being conscientious of where we are and where we're putting these things. So that was a huge job in itself and something that I gained more experience in this year, learning about what needed to be, what they use the word fiber. Things have to be fibered together because they want all 40 of those screens, if possible, to give the same message at the same time, right? So whether they're showing clips of the greatest hits of the NFL or they go to directional signage, they want them all to be fibered together. So fiber is a cable about as thick as your camera cable. It's just a high-tech fiber. It's not copper cable. And so we fiber all of them together. It goes to like a main video truck, and then that's all controlled by one or two people. But it's a huge operation. It really is. And changing things on the fly and if there's an emergency, you have to deal with emergency signage and things like that. So that's one of those things in a contract that it says additional duties as assigned, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you do it with a good attitude, and you do it with, a smile on your face, and do it with curiosity. Like I knew nothing really about, I dabbled with the video screens last year a little bit, but they were, they had enough confidence in me to take it on this year, right? So I engaged in it, and I'm much more well versed in it now, and probably more employable in the future.
So let's back up. And how much in advance do you know that you've got the gig? And when do you really start working on stuff too?
I was telling you kind of in a joke, but it's kind of serious in a way. As I was saying, if you're invited and you're at the closing night party of the year before, then you're coming to the next year's gig. You've been invited to the gig. I mean, that's just, this is a wonderful company, very family-like, and unless you do something terribly bad, they're very loyal. It's one of the most loyal companies I've worked with, it's so yes, I hope to get invited to the closing night party, and I was. So I'm hoping to go to Los Angeles next, even though it was a virtual party, we still did it.
And when do you start getting information, or when, give us a timeline of how
Sure.
things progress?
I'm as much as I can tell you, and as much as I know, under my assumption is that there's probably already been 2 site visits to Los Angeles. I'm guessing. I have not been part of one. The first time I was called to do Houston was my first Super Bowl, and I got a call in October to see if I could make a trip out to Houston in October, and the game was in February, the first week of February. So, that was the first call I got, was from them, and they said, "Hey, what are you doing in October?" And I had worked with them prior during an all-star baseball game that was in San Diego in 2016. I was working for the San Diego Symphony. I got hired as a freelancer, and they had rented out their outdoor venue, and I got hired to do the concerts with Gwen Stefani and Eve and Tori Kelly and All Time Low, One Republic, and this company was putting it on. So they saw my work and decided to call me and see if I would want to become part of the team, which is the best way that you can really, join a team, is to be asked. It's an honor, a privilege. I didn't apply for it. I didn't even know that they did it, to be honest with you. I had no idea. I was just doing my gig, right? I was just doing my thing, and I was making things happen. And I was kind to everybody that came into contact with me. I had a good attitude, smiling as much as possible and trying to be as helpful as possible. And that's who people hire. That's who people hire. And if you don't know, they'll actually take the no knowledge, along if you have the good attitude part, because they know that you can probably learn. So they knew that I had no experience in the Super Bowl. I mean, how many people do? You know what I mean? Like it's a close knit family. So they took a chance, but they knew that I could learn fast, and that's what it is. It's your ability to have to learn quickly. It's like being shot out of a cannon in a circus act, and there's no net below you, and you got to stick the landing. It's like it's this whole thing, So yeah, 6 months for me, probably 6 months ahead.
And for everybody else, let's just go like non-pandemic first, and just talk normal.
Yeah.
What that is.
Yeah, that's all non-pandemic. So about 6 months. So I would expect if we're going to do this, that I might go to LA around October and go do a site visit. Get the lay of the, how everything's gonna, where different things are, where entrances might be, where GameDay Fan Plaza might be, where the VIP party might be, things like that, placement of things.
Do you end up getting ground plans? Is that a thing? I mean, I assume.
There's an office of people that's all they do. They churn out drawings and revisions. Even when we're on site, there's she's there, and like I'll go in and I'll say, is there any chance we can move that to that, and it's done, and then we print out another version of it. So it's very much the communication process that has to happen just to make sure that you have the right version number, right? So that's why stage managers, it's so important to put version numbers and dates on your paperwork, obviously, so that we all know what version number that we're working off of. And it can get up into the 20s and 30s, if we're making changes, things like that. So there's always been changing.
And are you doing like weekly production meeting type things, or?
We were doing up until about starting about 3 weeks out. At the end of the day, we would do an end of the day meeting, and all of our departments would just check in. They were very fast, and the philosophy with keeping these meetings going, because they were really good about giving you your time off, right? We did a 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And with a 5 o'clock meeting, end of day meeting. And really, it's really just about check-in. So unless it affects everybody, you just say, I'm good, right? Like, I'm good. I don't need to. And we go through the table because you'd be surprised how some of these things don't affect everybody, but you can get them done with a side meeting. And everybody that's at the Super Bowl is kind of at a level of being able to handle small things that don't take up the entire time. Time is precious to us. I think it's a huge resource for us to have time, especially time to ourselves when you work without a day off.
I was gonna say, yeah, and so like you said, like for like 3 weeks, you don't have a day off, but you're usually off by like 6 p.m.
Yeah, and they're very flexible, and if we wanted to take time off, definitely it's there. I think it's me that wants to work all the time. If I miss a day, then I feel like I'm behind, but it's not hard. It's not hard that way. It's not exhausting. Does that make sense? I get a golf cart. How exhausting can it be?
And so this last time you were already in the city, but you didn't know which teams were going to play. Do you want to tell us that story?
That's the funny thing is that you don't have to be a football fan to work for the Super Bowl, evidently, because I had just landed in Tampa Bay, and I was at a drive-through for some fast food, and as I got to the window, horns started going off and fireworks, and I was about maybe a half a mile from the stadium. I didn't even know I was that close to the stadium, but that's where our hotel was. And I got up and I said, what's going on? What's the commotion? What's happening? And the guy in the window looked at me like I'm the only person in the state of Florida that just doesn't know that the Buccaneers just got into the Super Bowl, the first time that a home team has gotten into the game. So I was a little embarrassed, but I said, well, congratulations to them. And I got my burger and I drove right out of there. And then I knew from that point on. Is there any questions in the chat? I'm not really monitoring it that.
People have read your book. I caught that.
Well, thank you for that. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate that. Trust me.
Adrienne, have I missed anything specific yet?
No, there haven't been any specific questions in addition to the chat. A couple of comments about, the other duties as assigned is every stage manager's favorite contract clause, that kind of thing. I have a logistic question that I'll ask. You talk about running fiber to 40 different signs and, the kind of logistics of that. There's got to be, we think as stage managers about safety all the time, right? Making sure cables are covered and actors or technicians can't hit their head, that kind of thing. There's got to be different safety considerations when you're dealing with large crowds and the equipment that you're laying out and that kind of thing. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, we don't use cable ramps and we don't put any cable on the ground. Everything is flown. So we try to take the fiber, is so thin that there's trees, and in the modern stadium, this is why, I think the NFL likes the modern stadiums, is that there are power poles and utility poles all over the facility that have inputs for fiber, and they're all linked together already as part of the construction of the stadium. So, when we go into a little bit older building, then we have to fly everything. So that's what we did for here. And we weren't able to, just because it's not physically possible sometimes to be able to get all the machines wired together. It's just because of logistics, it's just not possible. So we have to differentiate which ones those are and who's going to be running those individually. And then the rest we try to fly the cable, either through trees or we attach it to utility poles. We put up truss in other situations, vertical truss. So it's nothing is on the ground. So that and we get it up over truck height so that trucks can still go underneath it.
Like box truck height. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 16 feet, 16 something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's how we do it. We do safe. Cable ramps are actually more dangerous sometimes. I can't tell you how many times I've tripped on a cable ramp. Probably wouldn't have tripped on the cable, but I did on the cable ramp.
Let's talk about sort of the communication aspects when we were talking in advance, like how many headsets are going on and how many walkie-talkies and who all gets to talk to who and just different kind of operations.
Well, there's one, there's one person does frequencies, like he's got to deal with frequencies, you know what I mean? Like just assigning those, and that's way above my pay grade. But somebody's doing that, and then we get our radios the day of, and then we check them out. And there are usually maybe 8 to 12 channels on it, and the different channels, security would be on 1, operations on 2, whatever those numbers are, and we have a little lanyard that tells us who's on what channel. And then we just communicate via radio and make sure that we're not on each other's frequencies. And then
and that's just for your company. That's for that. Like there are other.
Yeah, but there could be, the company that I work with, it could be 200 radios. It could be 200 people that are out there between stagehands and freelance, department heads. It's a big endeavor. It's a big endeavor. Yeah. But then there's another company that's doing the halftime show that has nothing to do with us, right? So we don't share radios or anything like that. Yeah.
And then the football teams, the quarterback is talking,
with us. Yeah.
Yeah. So something you and I have talked about that I hadn't really thought of is the periphery events go opposite whatever's happening with the live broadcast. Do you want to talk about what you and I were talking about? Who gives the go?
Sure. So the pregame festivities, which is like GameDay Fan Plaza, is a 4-hour. We open that about 4 hours before the kickoff, and that's family-friendly entertainment, family-friendly punt, pass, and kick competitions, things like that. Bands, music, circus, you name it. It keeps everybody's engaged for about 4 hours. And part of that is there's usually the live broadcast, depending on who is whether it's CBS or Fox. There's usually some sort of, when they do that cut to and you see them outside and they're on that pretend, football field and they're doing the pass to each other that goes 4 feet. You probably have all seen that. The color commentary, they call it. So we have to coordinate with that when they're going to come out of a commercial. And if we have a band playing, we have to make sure that, we cut that before they go live, or else they would hear, we would muffle them out. So there has to be communication between all the entities, even though we don't work together. Like CBS doesn't work with me, or we work together. We have to work together, but we're different companies, so that's essential as well. Keeping that communication open, finding out who is that person that I have to make that call with. That's something I would always do. I would always seek out information. If I didn't know, but I knew that somebody had to make that call, I would go over to the CBS booth and say, who is in charge of the person that needs to tell me to cut the music, right? And just get to the answers.
And these are like the name people that are singing. Like you had Miley Cyrus this year, right?
Was one of, yeah, Miley played for 7,500 first responders, yeah, that were vaccinated. So it was a really special. I think it was televised. I don't remember if anybody saw it on TV or not.
I think it
But
was internet televised, yeah.
but that's a
And then did she just have to stop whenever?
well, that didn't, no, this
That
is
wasn't?
part of that. No, none of
Okay.
that. We were off, off campus, we call it. So we weren't as close to the stadium as some of the other cities that we've been in. So it wasn't a problem sound wise.
But in another city, that might have been a thing, right?
Yeah, like in Miami, because the stage was like right next to the broadcast booth, so the way it was laid out. So, but that was easy to communicate with. We just watch the guy give us a countdown, and we just tell the band, and they'd ease into a break.
And the performance aspect of those bands, you're using their lighting people, whatever's their.
No, usually we provide lights and sound, a basic package that these bands then come in and plug into. We try to share backline as much as possible so that there's less. They use all their own guitars and keyboards and basses, and we try to share drum kits, things to make it easy to do changeovers, right? You don't want a lot of downtime in between changeovers. You want it to be as smooth as possible. So we try to share equipment sometimes, and that takes a management just in itself. If you think about 4 bands that all have 4 different kinds of instruments, and now you want to convince them all to use this one set, which of the 4 bands are you using? And it's usually the one that's considered the headliner, right? So the headliner, we would ask them first what would they want, and then ask everybody else, hey, what do you think about playing on this kind of drum set, right? So because changing drum sets is really the longest thing, right? So if you can just get up and move and have somebody else play drum set, it's a lot easier. So that takes a lot of coordination.
So tell me a typical day ahead, the day before. What's going on?
We're pretty much game ready. All the entrances are 100%, working. Everything is, cash registers work. There's no power problems. All the screens are working. Anything that affects the guests coming towards us, just everything is working 100% the day before.
And are the bands there at all the day before, or are there checks all the day of?
Well, depending on the band. Sometimes if they start early, we'll do the first band up sound check the day before, so that they're already preset for the day of. Just depends on who's playing, what stage they're on, are they sharing backline, transport, flight arrival times, because it's afternoon kind of thing. So some people are just flying in the morning and just coming over and doing the gig. Some musicians.
And then what about the day of? When does your day start?
My day starts at about 5:30 a.m.
And what time's the game usually?
Usually about 6, I think, is the kickoff.
Okay.
Yeah, so 5:30, I'm there. I'm making sure everything is doing its thing. Everybody's happy. Making sure everything's clean. It's a cleanup day. Making sure that everything is spotless. Attention to detail. And somebody calls doors, and then here they come. We make sure security's all ready. Everything's properly working. All the metal detectors, all the security measures are in place. And then if we've done our job right, it's very smooth, right? People are coming in. There's in Tampa, we did 6 foot social distancing, so we had the marks on the floor, so we had extra staff to make sure that people were keeping the social distance, especially out in the queue lines. We had bike rack, 6 foot bike rack that we used as barriers to make sure that people knew that they were 6 feet away. So and then everything is, if you've done your job right, things run smoothly. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. One of my favorite things to say. So, you're only as good as your advance work, so that you work your ass off for those first, those couple weeks, and to make sure that you've covered everything, you've thought everything through, and no surprises, no surprises. That's one of the things that we don't like as any of you stage managers. I would imagine nobody likes surprises, right? But we can deal with them when they happen. That's the thing. We don't like them, but we can deal with them.
And then, so what happens as the game starts?
Uh, Everything quiets down outside. The boards change, the directional signage changes, and then we safely watch everybody exit. And you know, Tampa Bay was a little bit more of a challenge because they were in the hometown. So everybody that lived around the stadium wanted to, of course, ascend upon the stadium, and that could cause some issues, some challenges for people. So the police department did a I thought anyway, a good job of maintaining that, and allowing there to be the frivolity and the partying that needed to occur, to get it out of their system, and at the same time keep the stadium and everybody that was leaving the stadium safe, and there was no traffic problems and things like that. So I think that they did a great job doing that.
Do you have anything specific you want to talk about what was different this year because of the pandemic?
It's really hard. It's really, really hard to produce when you can't be next to each other. Just to look at a drawing together, to put our heads together and look at a big 24 by 36 CAD, and plot things out, you got to be together. It's hard. You put 6 feet away from each other, and you're like, well, yeah, can you see this little dot over here? Or you're finding new ways to communicate. You're taking pictures on your phone, you're sending it to your friend, and then you're circling it, and it's difficult. Also, because there was occupancy limits inside the small offices that we were supplied with, you could never. They were originally, have 4 people, but for safety reasons, we would have no more than 2 people in the office at any given time. So there was that rotating. There was a big tent, outdoor tent with plenty of electricity and tables and computer hookups, and they gave us plenty of space to work. But it was just, you got to be together. I just, so that was a challenge. I think that was a challenge, staying away from each other, and it being such a family business, and not being able to high five each other and give each other a hug when you say goodbye at the end of the night. That's kind of that was challenging. But we made it through. They were very strict. I have to tell you, they were very, very strict with COVID. The NFL and the company that I work for, it was testing every other day, if not every day. Temperature checks every time you went in. You had to get a special pass. So yeah, it was very, very controlled, and very, I never felt unsafe. That was, I think the biggest thing for me is I was a little apprehensive accepting the job in the first place, just because. And then I got more comfortable as I started to hear about the safety measures that were being put in place. They made us, test before we even left, before we were even able to get on the plane. We had to test negative, and then test immediately when we got off the next day.
Because you didn't quarantine once you got there, right?
No,
Okay.
no, went to work. But that quarantine was, it's Florida. You can do whatever the hell you want in Florida.
There you go. That too. I think we have a couple questions. Adrienne, do you want to pop on?
Yeah. The first one from the group is, short of getting a call from someone or being invited to the post-event party, are there ways to find out who's working and hiring for an event like this?
I would check with the local, if you're talking about stagehand work, check with the local that's in your city, and see if they're going to be doing any overhiring, in the January, February range. Get on a list. Start to do some research on who might be throwing different events that are outside of the game, that are like red carpet events or things like that. Just keep your ear to the ground. Keep your ear to the ground. I know my way was the easy way, and I wish it could be that way for everyone. But I would say check with the local.
And if you're talking stage management, what kind of like other events might lead to, like you said, you did a baseball game, but you know,
I think what it is getting involved with the event planning companies that do those events, and that's where the tricky part is trying to find the names of who actually does these events. You know, who they contract with, who the NFL contracts with, because it's very, it's proprietary, and a lot of them don't, But if you were to, I bet you one of the biggest find who the biggest lighting company is in Los Angeles. I bet you they're going to have something to do with it. There's usually a lot of work to be had in the city. It brings a lot of work and a lot of revenue. I don't know if I don't think LinkedIn or any of those kind of Indeed or anything. I don't think they advertise in that way.
I know Pittsburgh has one production company that does most of the city or big event related stuff. I mean, we're a mid-sized city, right? We're not enormous like LA, but I would imagine that you can kind of suss out who that company is as well.
I mean, one of the things is try to figure out who that company is and then go look at their client list if they have one on the website. And if their client list includes the NFL, then, call them. I was never ashamed to just call somebody and ask if I could have a job. All they could say is no.
well, and I think also to shadow, I've shadowed event, conventions or whatever where they're doing the stuff from the back end too.
Yeah, but I think for the Super Bowl, I think that, you want to work if you can.
Laura Weston in the chat, for those who may or may not be tracking it, just noted that if you want to work through the IA local, make sure that you're already on their list over the summer. They start accepting interest applications in October, November for the Super Bowl because of credential clearance time. So keeping aware of timelines is important on big events too.
Yes, thank you for that, Laura. Was it Laura?
It was.
Great. Yeah.
The other question that we got from the group is any resume tips for a mainly theater stage manager who's looking to pivot to event or entertainment management?
If you have any event management already, put it at the top of your resume. Obviously, that seems like a logical thing to do. Find out who you're sending your resume to. Your resume doesn't have to be just one way. It can morph and it can change depending on what the job application is for. I would say one of the most important things for me is if they request a cover letter, is to make sure that cover letter is addressed to the person, not to whom it may concern. Because if I get one of those, I toss it because it shows me that nobody cares enough to put the time into figuring out who you're supposed to send the letter to. And show your passion in your writing. Show passion in your writing about why you want to be a part of this company or be a part of this environment. I think a good cover letter is a key to getting the resume. I'm not really big on the big flashy, new, where half the side is color and half the side is not. I'm just old school, I guess. I know that maybe I'm, you're the resume doctor, Erin, right? I mean,
Deb Shearer is the resume doctor. I do more the interview stuff with the portfolios.
Yeah, so to chime into the discussion, I like to see your name and your phone number big. I like to see who your references are, and please do not put references available upon request, because I will not request them.
Yeah.
I will not, because now I got to take another whole step to get in touch with you to get your references. And what if I get your voicemail and then you're going to call me back? And it's just put your references on your resume.
And do you want email or phone or both?
Of the references,
Mm-hmm.
I would ask your references what they're comfortable with. If they're comfortable with both, then I would put both. Yeah. Because I might want to start with a phone call, or an email, but then I might want to, follow up with a phone call as well.
Yeah.
Still using the phone these days sometimes.
I would think time frame matters too.
Yeah.
Email.
The urgency is more telephone, right? Yeah. So that's what I think about resumes. Let me see your name nice and, and your phone number and your contact info. put your references, anything cool that you do under special skills. Please don't put Microsoft Suite is a special skill. Excel is not a special skill anymore. The basics of Excel anyway, or Word is not a special skill.
Are there any classes or certifications or something that are good for event managers?
Oh my gosh. Yes, there are. There's all sorts of there's meeting managers. There's organizations like International Association of Auditorium Managers, I think is one of them. What I can do is put together a little list of associations and any sort of training, right? What kind of
Yeah.
little certificates, or you take a class and you get some letters after your name or something.
Are you OSHA 30?
Am I OSHA 30 personally?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
No. Okay. Didn't know if that was.
I'm embarrassed to say what is that?
Oh, OSHA, it's a 30-hour training. Like you have to have it in Nevada if you are overseeing a certain amount of people.
Oh,
Um, yeah. There's
wow.
there's OSHA 10. Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. Yeah. The good part about being a producer is that I usually have production managers and stage managers overseeing people. So I'll have to check if they're OSHA though. Yeah. All right.
How about one of your biggest like last minute shuffles you had to do during the Super Bowl?
Oh, during the Super Bowl, I haven't had to do anything.
No, because
No.
you planned so well. Yep.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. There's been plenty of other last minute shuffles. I can tell you that. One that comes to mind, I think that's kind of I can laugh at it now that it's over with, but at the time was I didn't know what to think of it. I was back to the Symphony's summer site again. The military was celebrating the 60th anniversary of World War II, the ending of World War II. So it was they rented out the venue. They had the survivors of World War II in the front. There was an invocation from the chaplain. There was the Navy band was going to play, and the governor was going to make an appearance. Governor Schwarzenegger at the time, Arnold, and so I was in charge. I was the civilian production manager that did the deal for the Navy. And then I was the interface between the Navy stage manager and the community person, me saying, okay, we're in, like the local house is in, we can go. And I would turn it over to the Navy stage manager. Well, my job was the governor was late. So I had to get I was in touch with his driver, right? So how far out is he? Okay. And then I was calling every 2 or 3 minutes. Now, where are you? And we finally, and then I was conveying that because we had to delay the beginning of this thing. And by the way, there was also going to be some F-16s flying over, okay, when they finished the prayer, not the prayer, when they finished the Star Spangled Banner. So lo and behold, I see the governor. He's pulling up to the venue. We get him out. I'm on headset with the Navy stage manager. Said the governor's out of the car. Go ahead and start, the entrance music. Well, the governor, as we're walking up the stairs to the temporary stage, he sees one of our toilets, our backstage toilets, and he goes, "I got to use the bathroom." And I went, "No, you can't." And he goes, "Look, I'm the governor. I'm going to use the bathroom," literally. So he goes into the bathroom, and I said to the stage manager, "He's in the bathroom." She goes, "I've already started the cue," and she's already started the F-16s to make their approach. So lo and behold, she tells the priest, no, somebody on stage gets up and thinks it's a smart idea to grab the microphone and ask the reverend, the chaplain, to come and say the prayer. So we do that. The guy does that. The governor's coming out. The governor walks on the stage. The chaplain says the prayer and asks everybody to bow their heads, and the F-16s fly over. You knew that was coming, right? At like 200 feet overhead. And it's the sonic booms. I mean, the dentures and the people that were in the audience, I don't know how. It was one of those things where you're like, I can't believe this just happened. And it did, and it was funny, and now it's funny. And but at the time it was mortifying. I was like,
Yeah.
governor just screwed up this entire production. because he had to go to the bathroom. Yeah. It
And
happened.
yet that's also a good lesson to say, gee, should we wait to start it till we make sure that they, the whole sequence of events, in hindsight, now you probably go, gee, does he have to go to the bathroom before I start the whole next section?
And there's so many things, of course, after the fact that you can go, well, what would I do? I was and move the toilet out of eyesight, just get it out of the way, get it out of there. You just never know. That's the thing about production management and stage management is that every day is a new adventure. Every time my phone rings, I don't know what to expect, honestly.
Ben in the chat commented, the ultimate, I do not have places.
Yeah, Ben. That might have been something along those lines. I'm like, he's in the bathroom. I'm not sure we're ready to go. Something like that.
So Jay, how big are the teams that you work with in terms of production management, stage management teams? Obviously, they probably vary by event, but
They vary. When I do my events, my fundraisers in San Diego, I usually have 10 or 12 stagehands and assistants, and probably another 3 lighting people, lighting team, probably 3 audio team, 2 or 3 video team. And those are all from different companies. I hire vendors to fill in those spots, which is why I think I've been successful having a production company that doesn't own any equipment. So that's been anywhere up to gosh, on a Super Bowl day, not myself, but my colleagues can be upwards of 50 to 60 probably.
And that's just handling that event, right?
That's just handling what the labor for that day, and it could be on 5 or 6 different things that they're all working on, but 10 hands here, 10 hands there, 10 hands here.
At a given Super Bowl, how are you? I assume you each have office. Or is it trailers? How are you guys doing offices for all those people?
Well, there are these things called, God, what are they? They're. I'd have to show you a picture of it. They unfold and they turn into these offices. They're really cool. They're modular, and they use them on battlefields too. And when they're folded up, they're like 4 feet wide, and then they drop them in with helicopter. I mean, we drove ours in, and then they unfold, and it's like a 16 by 16 square with windows and doors. It's really crazy.
Huh.
Yeah, it's really something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who else has got a question? Guys, sorry, I used the generic guys. That one's really hard for me to not do, because I usually even mean all women when I say it. So apologies if someone feels left out when I say guys. So folks with an X in the chat, if you have questions for Jay, what else?
I'm just looking through the chat here.
are they portafabs? Is that what?
Portafabs. I don't.
Maybe not.
Give me a minute. I could probably.
There's all sorts of interesting things that came up in a quick search, though. It makes me fascinated.
Yeah, let me see. Hold on.
Well, and I wonder if we're going to have to think more about this in the time of COVID anyway, to just spread people out.
Yeah.
Ben Walsh asks, any kind of paperwork that's especially helpful? Surely calendars and ground plans to start with, but dot.
Timelines are everything for me. As far as we get an updated timeline pretty much every day.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of columns are in that timeline?
Oh gosh, who, what, when, where, why, how, basically, what the task is, who's going to do it, where is it happening, how many crew are involved with it. I'm just trying to find this. I'm trying to find a picture of that.
I've also seen mobile things like dressing rooms and shower units, and there's a lot of different mobile facilities that are available. Are those something that you typically work with on your productions? Maybe not the Super Bowl, but other ones where you can't use the venue facilities?
I use William Scotsman trailers in my concert venues. They're like construction trailers.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that I use. I'm sorry, I can't find it. I wish I could.
That's okay.
Yeah, William Scotsman is a great company. They do temporary offices. They could do furniture. They do plumbing. They take care. It's a one-stop shopping. So William Scotsman, or I think it just might be Scotsman now. I think they may have.
And that's a West Coast centered company?
I
Oh,
don't
I
like
used it in Ohio
yeah,
for when I worked for an electrical engineering company. We had one outside.
just,
Yeah.
star wagons if you need like a a super duper uh, dressing room, mobile dressing room. Star wagons is good, and just a nice RV sometimes takes the place of a dressing room. So we did
Mhm.
Florida in Miami, and we just used RVs for dressing rooms because there was no place to put large dressing rooms. So
I've done RVs on commercial shoots for that reason, if we're doing multiple different work sites in a day.
yeah, exactly.
In the chat, we have, especially early in your career, how did you keep up with the connections you made?
That's a really good question because I'm so bad at networking because I have social anxiety disorder. Um, I'd like to say that, I was good at what I did. So therefore, they, we always knew what each other was doing for some reason, like, and they were easy to stay in touch with because I could talk about work, I think, mostly, it was not, I didn't have to talk about my personal life or their personal life but when we could talk about work. So I would just drop an email every now and then or a phone call and, especially if I was looking for some work ahead of time, do you have any projects coming up? Um, when I was, I toured the Hawaiian Islands doing children's theater just because I called the receptionist asking if they needed a stage manager. And, so don't be afraid to call. Just because I have social anxiety disorder doesn't mean that y'all can't can't make those calls. So, if you want to get involved in the event business, what I was telling my class earlier today is we're talking about doing charity work, doing nonprofit work for nonprofits. So if there's something in the city that you're in that really is warm to your heart, if it's saving animals, let's say, go to the Humane Society's website, look under their events tab. They're going to have an events tab, and then look at what the events that they're doing. And they usually have one large gala or event yearly. In San Diego, they call it the fur ball, I think, is which is kind of fun. And but call the event planner and go to the contact us, go to the about us page on the website, see who the event planner is, and call and offer to shadow that day and see if there's something that you can do to be on the production team. Say you have some experience in lighting or even stage managing, offer to give your services. And then so many people in that industry get hired from by word of mouth and by watching others work, so you got to get out there and be seen. You got to get out there and be seen. And I know that's tricky sometimes because there's parameters, but it's all about who but flip that around. It's all about who knows you is really the important part of that. It's all about who knows you, who knows where you are, who knows where you're working, who knows how good you are. It doesn't matter if I know a bunch of people. It doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but it's really about them knowing me, them knowing my abilities, and them calling me. And that's where you want to be, I think, is to, it makes now, trust me, it hasn't always been like this. I make it sound like, my phone, there have been dry spells when I haven't had any work. There have been times when I have not gotten the job. There have been times where I've gotten the job and hated it and left the next day. There's been all sorts of ups and downs. So I don't want it to sound like, you know, everything in my life is magic. I will say that there's a lot of it that is. And I think that's just because I go about every day trying to just be happy with life as best as you can.
Do you have any podcasts or books, or what are your favorite things to be, you
Oh,
know, involved in right now?
I like to listen to The Shine Daily Shine it's like an 8-minute meditation. Is my podcast I play with my students in the morning. It's usually some sort of self reflection. Today it was about commit to trying, right? You don't have to just commit to showing up, right? Because sometimes it's difficult. We don't want to always show up, it's hard. But if you can commit to trying and commit to showing up, that's half the battle. So those kind of things. Books wise, what's on my shelf that I'm really reading? I'm rewriting my own, so haven't been spending a lot of time. I'm big on servant leadership, so I like the Greenleaf books about servant leadership, becoming a servant leader. Like Greenleaf is a good one that's up there now. The Zen of Listening, I remember that's a good one. Being a good listener. And that's about it. I play my guitar and write mostly when I have some free time.
Yeah, didn't you just say you just wrote one not too long ago or during the pandemic?
Yeah. Oh, I've written a bunch in the pandemic. Yeah. Yeah. Because what else do you do, right? Write a bunch of sad country songs. All right.
Who else has a question for Jay?
And it's okay if you don't. You don't have to have, it's all right. No problem.
What do you think's next?
For me, I'm doing a mainly Mozart festival in April at the Orange County Performing Arts Center, and then we're going to do it down here in the Del Mar parking lot. We're sold out. We have 300 cars that are going to come. It's members of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra and the LA Philharmonic are combining. So I'll do 4 nights with them in San Diego.
And if people are in their cars, how does that work?
Well, the
Do
sound
they-
system is transmitted through their FM receivers. Yeah. So, and then we also have a live PA that's outside. So if you want to open your windows, you can. But it's a socially distanced 36-piece orchestra. And we did our first series of concerts last month, and it was very successful. What else? I'm doing an online conference for the Arts, Media, and Entertainment Conference, which is part of the State of California's Department of Education. So that's coming up in June. Starting to hear about dates in live concerts at the end of August, beginning of September, up in our Northern California venue. So we're looking at Toby Keith, Hank Williams Jr., some Leonard Skinner shows, all some really old rockers that many of you probably have not heard of. So, doing that, March. I'm just trying to think what else is happening. Gosh, you put me on the spot. Big Brothers Big Sisters of San Diego, the Girl Scouts of San Diego, all fall events, looking at doing a hybrid between virtual and live. So I'm just starting meetings with them. And, every day is a new adventure.
Do you anticipate different sets of challenges when you do combined events, virtual and live? Or have you talked about what that might mean already for the fall?
We already kind of do. We did one last year where we were live in the studio, and then we would roll the pre-recorded stuff that we had shot ahead of time. So that was the challenging thing, was getting CEOs and executives who aren't used to being in front of a camera like that to, not get scared. So that was one of the things that we had to do. I think was different.
Mm-hmm.
Other challenges are just the technology, I think, about what they want to do. I think anything is possible. I haven't heard exactly what they want to do, if they want to be outside of the studio and still do a live stream, but from outside of a contained studio. So I'm interested in hearing their ideas. Definitely. Coming up here next week, I have meetings with both of them.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We do have a question. Do you have any advice for new teachers teaching stage management to college students?
Yes. Try to teach them to recognize, I don't know that you can teach them, but to recognize within themselves empathy and compassion and, an openness and a willingness to serve everyone. And to do it with kindness and to not want for yourself. And then teach them about paperwork and stage managing and calling cues and all those things. But how to be an active listener, how to be a listener with intention, how to listen with intention, how to not want to cut somebody off or finish their sentences. But those things that I can't teach you, but I can teach to you to recognize in yourself. And I think empathy and compassion are two of the biggest things that I think good stage managers, it comes to them naturally. I think it's part of their DNA. We just have to find it within them and help. And that's what I think a lot of teachers might miss, is that part. And also teach them about taking care of their mental health. Teach them that it's important. My students get 3 days off a semester called mental health days, and they don't get to do schoolwork. They have to do something that's creative for an hour, and then they have to tell me what it is that they did. And you'd be surprised at the results of that. So making sure that we teach self-care, because sometimes it's go, 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 go. Teach them that when it's time to take a 10-minute break, that they actually get up from the tech table and go and take a break. Go and breathe some air. Go and see some sunshine. Don't let the actors swarm around you and take up your time. You have to be confident and forceful in that. Self-care is super, super important. So don't forget that for the new teachers.
So how do you do that during all of your Super Bowl stuff when you're out of town for 3 weeks with no day off?
My semester starts the end of January, and I only miss a week, and I get my AEA Broadway stage manager friends to cover my classes.
But I mean, like when you're on site, how do you, for you personally during those 3 weeks,
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
how do you maintain any kind of a break and balance and mental health?
But because we don't work until 10, 10 o'clock at night, we get a full hour break. So I make sure that I take my hour break for lunch. I nourish myself at 5 o'clock. I go home. I go for a walk. I play guitar. I do, whatever that is. I just have to be always conscientious of it, because if you don't, you will just sit on the couch or fall asleep, which is okay too.
And are they doing like craft services there for you, or are you walking away?
I'll walk away.
That's a nice treat to actually have to walk away. Sometimes it feels like craft services is the free meal that's never free.
Yeah, that's true. But we get
Okay.
per diems. We get per diems every day, so we get, 7 days a week, we get a per diem. So I can't argue with that, because there's no way that I'm going to eat that much worth of food in a day, I
Well,
was just,
Jay,
yeah, there's
okay.
a comment in the text, in the chat here, that Tiffany says that one of her first things her stage mentor in university taught me that really stuck was that a lot of job is ego management. Yeah, absolutely. And I've been grateful for my psychology. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It is ego management. It is. And to not, so, how do you manage, how do you deal with ego management, right? That's to not take things personally. Just
So hard.
it's hard, but read Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements. That's one of my favorite books too. The Four Agreements, Miguel Ruiz. It's one of the agreements is don't take things personally. And it's an easy read. It's a fast read. It's one of those, you don't have to read it in order. You can open right up to that agreement and go, how do I not take things personally, and work through it. I think it's a really great little side toolkit. Tiffany, you're shaking your head. Have you seen the book? Yeah, good, good.
I think she's the same one that just wrote life-changing book.
Ah, oh, good. Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah, it really is. It's four simple things, right? Four simple things. If we can just do those, but they are hard. I have to tell you, they are hard. So, but look it up.
Well, great, Jay. This has been lovely. I like when we can just dig one-on-one with a single person sometimes,
Yeah,
instead of trying to cover everything,
yeah.
and fit it all in. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. I'm happy to join. And anybody, if you want, let me put in my info into the chat if I can spell my name correctly without looking at the keyboard. Okay, there we go. Please. Oh, that's just, and I did it to Ellen Marie privately. Hold on. I'm spending time now. sdsu.edu. All right. There you go. That's my email address. Please feel free to stay in touch. And if you have any other questions, I'm always available. Erin, you know that. One of the other agreements is to be impeccable with your word. And one of the things is that if you say you're going to do something, you do it. So if you write to me, I'll write you back. Okay.
Love it.
All right,
Great.
everybody.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Stay tuned. There's a bunch more events going on the Stage Managers Association website. There's a dance stage management get together next Tuesday night, and lots and lots of regional events. So take a look at the public page for any public stuff, the Facebook group, all of that. Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you next
Awesome.
time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.